Welcome back to Steve Robb Reviews. Today's video is going to be all about saw blades. How many teeth should you get when you buy a saw blade? And what's the best saw blade for you? Now this particular video is strictly geared towards the do-it-yourselfers and the hobbyists. You know, the people who dabble in carpentry, have some power tools, and they're thinking about, okay, so you got to replace your saw blade, or you got to buy your first set of saw blades. What blades do you buy, and how many teeth do you need on a saw blade? Because that particular subject there, well, I've seen cause a lot of havoc because a lot of people think more is better. And in this particular situation, for most do-it-yourselfers, less is more. So let's go over to the bench here. I'm going to show you some saw blades. I'm going to explain the differences, and let me know if any of these things that you find helpful at all, because for most do-it-yourselfers, this is the type of video you want to watch. Well, let's just take a look at this one here, and you can see framing, ripping, and this particular saw blade fits on this one here. It's a 6 1/4 inch, and the blade that's on this one here is an 18. This one here, well, you can see it's a 20 tooth. So the whole idea behind a ripping saw is, well, I'll have to explain that first. Here's your typical board. You cut across the grain, and that is a cross cut. You go with the grain and cut like a long section like this, and that is what's called ripping. Now, when you're cutting across the grain, it is much harder to do than ripping. So they have two different styles. So if we just take a look at this one here goes on a 7 1/4 inch. Now the reason why I bought this is I'm going to be cutting, well, 2x4s, you know, like large dimensional lumber, and the less teeth for me, the better. Now, here we go with a 10 inch. Now this one here is a combination. Well, it's, see right here, combination. And you see how the tooth design is much different. There's so many different saw configurations out there, and the people who do this for a living, the professionals, well, they know exactly which saw matches their particular work. But overall, you have to match the amount of teeth to the work that you're doing. And if we get down to this one here, well, you can see that one there. That's the one that's on my saw I'm going to show you in a minute. And that is a brand new one, and it's 40 teeth. And of course, I use this for cross cutting, but it is a general wood cutting blade. And that's a good example of a general blade that a lot of people should consider for a do-it-yourselfer, or a combination blade itself. Now this one here, another general purpose blade, 12 inch, 32 teeth. I like this blade, I like it a lot, or 40 tooth, and I'm going to show you a couple of reasons why you should never use these blades when you want to do some cross cutting. And you see a blade like this, look at the teeth on that. Now if you're trying to cut like a 2x4, or this is a 2x3, the best you're going to do is just smoke this blade like you wouldn't believe, because it is not designed to cut cross cut. This is a fine, well, you can see all the teeth. It's a fine finished blade. It's for cutting smaller dimensional lumber, and it's also designed to cut with a smooth cut. And of course, all the blades and the teeth configurations are different as well. But I'm going to show you some tips here that the general do-it-yourselfer could use in figuring out what kind of blade do they actually need, and how many teeth do they actually need to use. Okay, so I got you pretty well zoomed in there, and I just want to show you something. This is a very easy tip for all of you, is you take a look at your material. Like this is a 2x3. It could be a 2x6, 2x10, doesn't matter, but it's 1.5 inches from the top to the bottom, like all 2x. So you take a look there and you count the teeth. How many teeth can you fit when you're holding it up vertically? So I would say at the most you're going to get 3 teeth on there. And that is a 20 tooth. Now you take a look at this one here. You know, you're still going to get 3, but at the most you could see you're only going to get 3 teeth on there. Now we move up to the 80 tooth. Now this obviously is for cross cutting, but you can see that you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, well, I would say 7 teeth. So my general rule is, if you're cutting the wood, you need a minimum of 2 teeth to land on the wood from the top to the bottom, whatever the thickness of your wood is. A minimum of 2 and a maximum of 4. Once you start going into a blade like this, well, all you're going to end up doing is just burning the wood right up to pieces because it is actually too thick for the material. And this particular blade here, it's not really made for this type of dimensional lumber. So here's the next most common material here, and that's a 3/4 inch board that the do-it-yourselfer is going to be using. And you can see there 2 teeth, right? That's a 24 tooth saw blade. This one here on the 20 tooth, you still got the 2 teeth, right? And it will cut this board no problem. Now this is where it gets a little bit interesting. Is now we've got this one here, and you're going to have, see how many teeth are on there? Now it will cut this real nice and leave a nice edge, a real nice edge. The problem is that this particular blade here is about, I would say, 6 times the price of one of these. So how much money do you want to spend on cutting a board? If this is a really expensive board and you want a really, really fine cut, well, this here won't do it. This one here, yeah, if you're cutting 3/4 of an inch or less, say you're cutting, say, 1/8 of an inch, like there is some material out there that's 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, 3/8, yeah, you want a finer cut, you have to get more teeth. Generally, the most I go with is 2 to 4 teeth on stuff that is not that imperative, and stuff that you really want to cut with a nice fine edge to it, well, up to 6 teeth is about as much as I want to go, because I really haven't noticed any difference. I mean, like I say, this is for the do-it-yourselfer. This is not a cabinet maker or a professional. They know exactly what they need, right? So here we are on my 10-inch table saw, and say you wanted to rip this piece of wood. A lot of people would wonder, so how high do you have your blade above your wood? Well, that's actually too high. And of course, the teeth will protrude past the wood, but that's actually too low. The ideal position is, you see the notches that I've taken out in between? So when a tooth cuts, the wood will go inside this little sphere and then drop out on the bottom. My ideal positioning is right about there. As you can see, it's got enough space for the wood to clear as it goes on to the next tooth, and it's tearing the material down. So if you have it too high, well, what's that going to cause? Well, it's going to cause danger, because there's no reason to have a blade way up high like this. That's how accidents happen. And too low, well, it just distorts the wood and chews it up and just rips up the top side. So right about there is where I like it. Well, let's move over to my 12-inch miter saw. And I've got the 40 tooth combination blade on there. And this is a 5-inch piece of 3/4 inch pine. You see how you're coming down like that? Now that is not a good way to cut. So where should the saw blade be in relation to your cut when you're first making a cut? Because that there is like a rough plunge cut where you really don't care what it's going to look like after, right? So, but as you can tell, that is not right. So I'll show you exactly how you're supposed to position your saw blade in relation to your piece of wood. So let's just move the slide over, and you could see that it's completely different now. You can see how the teeth are going to interact with the wood there rather than way up here. No matter how far I turn that, the first contact is going to be on the surface. You don't want that. So generally, the rule of thumb is you take your blade in half vertically and you move your blade back about the same direction. So about 6 inches back. Now you can bring this down and you can see how that's going to cut. And then you would just move your slide forward. Now if you wanted to just use a plunge cut, you could use a plunge cut right here. But you can see that the first tooth coming down is going to come down right here. And then as you go further down in the cut, then you can push it ahead or just finish the plunge itself. Yeah, so you never want to really start to cut on the top surface. You want to bring it back and start where it can start off on the edge. This is the 20 volt cordless with a 18 tooth blade, and this particular unit here, well, it is no comparison to this one here that's 13 amps, has a cord, and has gobs of power. What do I have on this? A 16 tooth. I only use this for cutting like dimensional lumber, just 2x4s, 2x6, or ripping a long 2x6. You try ripping dimensional lumber with this, well, you're probably going to go through the best battery you can find in a 10-foot length, because you know, they're just not made for it. It's okay for some cross-cutting and that kind of thing, but long dimensional lumber, ripping lumber, nah, go with something like this. And how much money should you spend on a saw blade, and how many teeth? Well, you know, that's a lot of it's going to come down to experience, but generally you don't need to be sold on getting a lot of teeth, because you're not going to get a lot of work done and it's just going to burn up your tools. Okay, so what's the best saw blade to buy? I mean, I've shown some of these blades here and you've seen some brand names, and this one here says DeWalt, this one here says JobMate. Look, if you're a do-it-yourselfer, these all cut wood. I bought this for $5. You know, and the least teeth you have, the faster, obviously, that it's going to get dull. But for $5, I can use one of these for a long time. Chuck it out. This one here, you're going to pay $60. And I only use it for fine trim work, you know, moldings and that kind of stuff. So, do you want to throw them in the garbage? Well, I don't know. I'm going to put a video link down below where I show how I sharpen them myself on my miter saw, and might be a good tip for you as well. I'll leave the link down below, and you can see how to sharpen them yourself, because if you're buying a half decent blade, you're paying at least $60, between $40 and $60 for a do-it-yourselfer. Like I said, you know, the professionals, they pay professional prices too. But brand names or that kind of stuff, buy what you can afford and just get out there and start working, because that's what it comes down to. And I mean, like this one here for a circular saw, $5, 24 teeth, 7 1/4 inch. I'm not here to sell you to go buy a certain brand name 3 times the price and then drop a link down below and say, there you go, right? No, that's not what my channel's all about. I'm just giving you an honest review of what I do every day, the tools I use every day, the tools I buy every day. So thanks for joining me today, and yeah, that might be a good tip to take a look at that video down below on how you can sharpen the blades yourself. Like, I mean, this is not, like I said, this is only what I do. It's up to you if you want to do it, But I do it, and I get a blade to last me a real long time, especially when I'm just cutting 2x4 studs and, you know, that kind of stuff. And I really don't care, you know, if it's not like a perfectly, you know, laser cut, you know, kind of fanatical, you know, things that well, you see that kind of stuff on YouTube, right? Somebody's just got to show you a blade that will just cut a 2x4 and it looks like, you know, like a laser cut it. Well, in the real world, nobody really cares. So thanks for joining me here today. Come back again. If you haven't seen this channel before, you're welcome to subscribe. Get some real reviews.